turn on the webinar in about 30 seconds. Let's call it 15 seconds now. Just wanting to make sure that the everything gets synced up here a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and start this webinar. Hello, everyone. We are just thrilled and excited to be here today with Bill Huston for the SuperCrowdHour. We're talking about unleashing the power of crowdfunding for affordable housing. This really is an important discussion. Crowdfunding works so incredibly well for real estate that we need to be talking about more, kind of leaning into how we use this for those social impact purposes, community building purposes, because it works so naturally well. So stick around with us today. We're going to have a great conversation. But before we get started, let me just acknowledge and thank our sponsors. Purpose Rounds is transforming customers and communities into owners and advocates, and we're especially grateful for them. Learn more at purposerounds.com. We're also grateful for Halyard Compliance. Halyard is a firm that specializes in regulation crowdfunding compliance for both portals and issuers. So if you're a portal and looking for great compliance expertise at affordable prices, this is a great resource for you. And if you're running a regulation crowdfunding offering, this is a great place to get some of your compliance expertise. So we also want to acknowledge and thank our supporting co-hosts, including Rotary International, Move the Needle with Rob Kaplan, Amoeba, the American Independent Business Alliance, Funding Hope, and Ridgecrest Herbals. We are really excited and grateful for their support of our organization. And of course, our other co-hosts include CFP, and of course, CrowdMax, Bill's company, the Gig Group, Dakin Capital, Jenny Cassin's group, Mashup Labs, Crowdfund Better, the Alliance for Peace Building, and Community Vision Solutions, and Crowdfund Main Street. I want to thank and acknowledge Chandon, my colleague, who works so often behind the scenes helping us, but he does so much, creates so much value at the SuperCrowd. We're incredibly grateful for him, and he's a great human being and provides tremendous value. If you get to know Chandon, you'll get to know a great human being. We talk about money and finance and investing on our webinars oftentimes. So I want to just remind you that this is educational information. If you need financial advice for managing your money, that you want to get that somewhere else. We have a special program for our webinars. If you attend 10, and we track attendance carefully, if you attend 10 webinars and we track your attendance, then we'll give you $100 to invest in a regulation crowdfunding campaign. So you want to attend 10. Now, there are some important rules that you need to be aware of. That we track the attendance with Zoom. So if you're watching on YouTube, it doesn't count. You've got to join via Zoom. And let me tell you how to do that. You can go right now, if you're watching on YouTube live, just hit 4sc.fund/May, 4sc.fund/May, and you can register right now and hop right into the webinar in Zoom. And by doing that, you'll be able to have your attendance tracked and get credit toward your 10 webinar attendances so that you can get the benefit of that reward. The complete rules for the rewards you can find at rewards.4sc.fund. I want to also tell you about our Impact Cherub Club that meets next week. we always meet, or at least typically, on the third Tuesday of each month at 1 p.m. Eastern. This is a club of small angel investors focused on impact, and we share responsibilities for doing due diligence and making investment decisions. Everyone makes their own investments. I don't touch the money. Chandon doesn't touch the money. You are on your own, and we don't hold people accountable for investing, though we hope that people will actually invest in the companies we choose each month. You can register to attend our meetings at the Impact Cherub Club. We are now requiring folks to become impact members of the Super Crowd, and you can do that by visiting the SuperCrowd. No, excuse me. You want to visit Superpowers for Good with the number 4 in there, superpowersforgood.com. And there you can subscribe or join the Super Crowd as an impact member. Just $5.95 a month. And it's even cheaper. I think with the annual price, it works out to be about $5 a month. So it's really affordable. We're talking about like the cost of 1 cup of coffee a month to be a member of the Super Crowd. And then you can join the Impact Cherub Club as well. So we look forward to having you there. We're looking forward to Super Crowd Chicago. You know, our featured speaker today is Bill Huston, and Bill will be in Chicago. He will be among many crowdfunding experts who will be at this event. This is going to be an extraordinary gathering of experts from across the country who will be there. Genuinely, you know, I'll be coming out from California. Others will be coming from the East Coast. This is going to be a gathering of genuine experts in Chicago to talk about crowdfunding. We'll also have local leaders, prominent folks there who are helping us with this. So please, please, please join us in Chicago on June 12th. Learn more and register at 4sc.fund/CHI. Okay. With that, let me introduce Bill Huston. Bill is, you know, one of my favorite people. Bill and I've been friends. I think we connected in 2017, and we've had so many opportunities now to work together. I count him as a close friend. Bill is an Inc. magazine top 19 global crowdfunding expert and has managed or consulted on various investment crowdfunding campaigns over the years. He's been a content consultant for Rutgers University, and he's a board member of several organizations, including the National Coalition for Community Capital and the Crowdfunding Professional Association. We're grateful to Bill and thrilled that he's here with us today. And with that, I'll kind of turn off the screen and we can kind of get started here in earnest. But Bill, tell us a little bit about how you see crowdfunding for real estate, especially affordable housing. Give us kind of an overview to start the discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Devin. I appreciate the opportunity to be on today to talk about affordable housing and real estate crowdfunding. I thank everyone for taking the time out of their day to be here. I think that real estate crowdfunding has an enormous opportunity to really make an impact in the affordable housing community, in that industry. And I think that along with affordable housing, you know, we need to think about equitable housing, right? So along with having housing that is affordable, having people be able to actually work and enjoy other amenities in their communities is just as important as the affordability of their housing. You know, some of the things that I think are really powerful about real estate crowdfunding is that as you see development coming into communities, being able to provide the people who live in the neighborhoods, in the communities, with an opportunity through inclusive investing to participate as investors in the development of affordable housing, I think it gives people the opportunity to feel more a part of, because they are a part of. They are invested in this. They have a vested interest in not only having a place to live, but also an ownership stake, perhaps, or at least a financial benefit tied to that. And looking at those community rounds, and even for developers who are doing enormous projects that are tens of millions of dollars, allowing a community round where people from the community actually have the opportunity to invest in these affordable housing projects, again, is a game changer, because the surest way to get buy-in from people is to absolutely allow them to have a financial benefit tied to the success of the real estate project. So I think that this is a real game changer, and I look forward to more and more people, small scale developers, as well as larger developers, providing community rounds that allow more affordable housing, whether it's a 2 unit, 5 unit, or an enormous unit, to allow people in the community to participate and grow more affordable housing in their communities.
Yeah. One of the I think essential aspects of really, supporting communities, and there's some folks out there that do this so well, but is kind of a collaborative approach. And how do you recommend to your clients that they build that collaboration with community organizations into their development cycle and their crowdfunding, kind of their fundraising cycle? It seems like it's essential for both those aspects. How do you do that?
Yeah, it absolutely is essential. One of the mistakes I think that we make a lot is the assumption that everyone is consuming social media all day long, and not getting on the ground, going into communities, talking to people at the local level, talking to leaders at the local level. One of the things that I suggest, especially in Black communities across the country, because the Black church is such a prominent place in that community, is talking to pastors, getting in, having conversations with them, community centers, community organizations, nonprofit organizations, absolutely engaging with people on the ground, talking to people, educating people about the benefits of, number one, affordable housing, also about um, regulation crowdfunding and its ability to bring that ladder all the way down to the last rung. So almost anyone who has a job or an income has the opportunity to invest in this. And the benefits of being an investor in the affordable housing and community driven projects, I think that is huge. And just being willing to get on the ground, take the time to talk to people, meet people, talk to them in person, providing them with webinars. It's important that people kind of know, like, and trust you. And the only way they're going to do that is with FaceTime, whether that's on Zoom or whether that's in person. People need to get to know you, they need to like you, and they need to trust you. So it's really important to build those community relationships.
That's great stuff. We're getting questions from our audience. People are just champing at the bit to get access to you, Bill. Carl Dakin submitted a great question. He said, can you speak to the issue of renting versus owning affordable housing? I think it's a really important question. And we often think about investing in rental units, but investing in models that allow for people to buy housing, affordable housing, is also important. How do you think about all that?
Oh, I think it's absolutely vital that people have the opportunity to purchase, to become homeowners. If you think about the history of the middle class in the United States, going back to the late 30s, what really drove the middle class was home ownership, right? I mean, that's part of the American dream. And, home ownership should be a very important aspect of how people get into affordable housing, how they're able to invest in affordable housing, how affordable housing is actually structured, with some units that have the ability to be sold, right? There are going to be some units that are going to be rented, but absolutely people who are on the lower end of the ability to buy a home, they should actually absolutely be thought about. There should be mechanisms that allow people to kind of help with down payments. There should be mechanisms to reduce what the down payment is. And I think that there are some companies out there doing this now, and that's having a different credit scoring model. That credit scoring model eliminates so many people from from the opportunity to own their own home, but it's not as though these people are not credit worthy, right? They're paying their utility bills every month, they're paying their phone bill every month, they're paying their insurance. So really having a concerted effort and a wide effort at how you make people eligible for home ownership. One of the things that's very interesting to me, especially in the Black community, is that in 1968, the fair housing laws were passed, and in 1968, home ownership in the Black community hovered around 41 to 44%, and today, after 60 years, 60 plus years, it still hovers around 41 to 44%, across the country nationally. So thinking of different ways to get people to be homeowners. And I think that home ownership is important. And I like to talk about wealth and how you build wealth on two levels, right? So there's community wealth, right, which is wealth that benefits the entire community. And then obviously there's individual wealth. So being able to invest in a development, being able to buy your own home. But as people have the opportunity to invest, in their own homes and in their communities, they're going to take more pride in their community because it's theirs, right? Is it that Lanier Richardson says, we own it. And I think that is very important for people to have ownership, because when you have ownership, you absolutely care more, you take more care of it. And right along with that affordable housing, I think it's very important that as you build affordable housing in communities, that you also look at developing commercial corridors, that you look at investing in small businesses that are going to serve the everyday needs of people in the community that I live in. For instance, there's $500 million in retail spend in that community, but 70% of that is leakage, right? Retail leakage. So that money's leaving the community immediately. And if some of that money stayed in the community, circulated in the community, again, that's a way to build both individual wealth and community wealth by keeping those dollars in the community. So when I think about affordable housing, when I think about home ownership, I think of them as a single entity. I think about developing equitable housing where people have opportunities, and not just affordable housing, but there are opportunities, that there are nice parks, there are nice places that they can go to spend their time, to spend their money. And that is the community wealth that can be built through real estate crowdfunding, as well as the individual wealth by investing in projects and home ownership.
Yeah, this really is an important topic. I appreciate you addressing that. Already more questions coming in. Brian asks, can you say more about small scale type projects you've seen and been involved with? The 2 to 20 unit missing middle, smaller unit, naturally lower cost projects. And he's got a particular question. Have you seen this crowdsourced or crowdfunding capital be the input that allows a project to reach affordability?
Absolutely, that's a great question, and it takes me back to to the early days when I worked very closely with Linda Smith at Buy the Block. And the first company to the first real estate developer to actually raise the $1,070,000 was Chris Senegal with the Houston Fifth Ward project, and he raised that $1,070,000 as part of the capital stack. There were people who already lived in the communities. So what he did was, as people lived there, he made some renovations and some updates to the properties. So he was able to keep the prices low in this community, right? That the rents low as they were before, and also expand it by building in new homes, by allowing people to actually buy properties, and by actually building slash renovating some of the properties where businesses went into. And the people who lived in that community were able to not only live in that community in affordable housing. He was not only able to keep those prices affordable, he was able also to bring business in. And one of the interesting things about that was that in a very short period of time, I think somewhere between 12 and 18 months, people started to receive a 4% dividend. So people were seeing a return on their money. So that's one example. Another example was the development in Buyback Baton Rouge, in the Eddie Robinson, famous football coach, in his historic neighborhood. So yes, those projects have been done. Those are two specific projects that I know of that happened and that were successful. Doing some of that small to mid-range development. I think it's very important that as people, especially at the community level, I like to talk about community-led economic development, at the community level, to understand that if you want to do these affordable housing projects, they do not have to be massive projects. They can be small, community-sized projects that start to make an impact. If that's one home at a time, two homes at a time, 8 units at a time, 12 units at a time, that's absolutely where I think people should be looking, especially being able to raise, up to $5 million. I think that that's exactly where small scale developers should be looking to do a lot of this affordable housing development, as opposed to those massive developments, especially the new builds that cost, millions and tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's great feedback, Bill, on that question. It's such an important question that Brian had there. Now, Alan's got a question for you. Alan Holmes, he says he's a veteran, and he wonders if there are programs for veterans. And then he asks, he's got a network of 2,600 people on social media, and he's got a Black entrepreneurs group. And I think he wants to know if there's like a referral system or alliance partnerships that he can tap into with that network to get them involved. What do you think? Would you answer that question?
So as a crowdfunding person, as they say, that if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. As a crowdfunding person, everything looks like an opportunity to crowdfund. So if you have a community of 2,600 people, 2,500 people, whatever that number is, start educating them, start talking about the power of investment crowdfunding, what it can do, why it's important, and how it can be used, and start to bring those people around, because you kind of have a built-in crowd there. You're going to need to build your own crowd for any offering, and since you already have a group of people, that's the first and best place to start. I think that it's very important that people understand what investment is, how investment works, that I'm not going to invest $100 today and have $1,000 tomorrow. Sometimes it may take, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years to actually see that return, but that this is something that you're doing long-term, that you can lose, potentially all your capital. So it's very important that you educate people about investing in and of itself. It's important that people understand due diligence, how to do due diligence, and really kind of dive into the numbers and not just listen to the marketing talk. I think those things are important. And then you know, as you start to educate people, starting the process of making a single investment. I think it was some guy on this webinar with me who said that first investment is hard. So make that first investment, and then I think it gets easier from there. I think it's important for issuers to really make investments as well. And the reason I say that is it's important for you to understand what you are asking people to do. I think that's something that's very important. But back to that question, yes, absolutely. Start the process of educating people who are in your network about the crowdfunding. Have those people bring one or two people to the group. That'll help that group grow exponentially. As a veteran, I know there's a Dr. Kenneth Van Williams, a guy that I'm working with, and he specifically targets veteran communities. There are other developers out there who specifically target those veteran communities. I want to say thank you for your service. I'm an Army veteran myself, so thank you for your service. But absolutely, start educating yourself, educating the group, and really getting people engaged and excited about the opportunity. If people don't see the opportunity, talking to them about investing is going to be very difficult. But if people see the opportunity to make change, whether that change is community wealth, individual wealth, or just a change for the good in a particular community, that's what people really have to buy into. So education is really important.
Bill, is the Fund Black Founders program continuing? And I would also ask uh, if the 10K project might be relevant for Alan's Black Entrepreneurs Group.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Devin. The 10K project would absolutely be relevant because you do not have to create your own content. They have it there. I am a member of the 10K project. The 10K project is very interesting, and the reason that it's called 10K is because the goal is to reach 10,000 small dollar Black investors who are educated, who are ready to invest, right? So, you go to a bet on black pitch, you see an offer, and similar to the investment cherubs, if you're interested, you don't invest as a group, you still have to invest individually. But I think the benefits of the 10K project are that they have education, education, education. They are definitely going to get you prepared. And it's very important to be prepared and to understand what it is that you're doing. Fund Black Founders that's rewards crowdfunding. But that is yes, it's still going. It's a huge opportunity. Last year I worked with Renee King and Fund Black Founders, and we took 45 businesses through the crowdfunding process, and it was about a 15-week program. And raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. Drew and Lauren Holiday Foundation, and I think Drew is going to actually play for Team USA if you're a basketball fan. They actually provided matching grants. So I think that's an outstanding program. And here in Louisville, the Louisville Metro United Way also had 15 businesses go through a program, and they had matching grants. And the reason I say that is I think it's really important that you understand that if you are able to raise dollars through crowdfunding, those dollars can just be part of a capital stack. You're going to have different conversations with potential funders and investors if you bring your own money to the table, if you bring your own money to the conversation. And I think, again, that is something that is really important for people to understand is, that the crowdfunded money doesn't have to be the end all or be all. It can be part of the capital stack. It can be a community portion of that capital stack. When we think about affordable housing, when we think about building back communities by investing in the commercial corridors. It's just really important that people understand, the power of having those dollars, and being able to syndicate those dollars as one movement, right? So, crowdfunding in and of itself, at its very essence, is a large group of people contributing, in this case, investing into a shared vision. And, that shared vision can move as a single entity, if you invest in a particular developer as part of the capital stack. So I think it's very important to understand and educate yourself, around those opportunities, and what it really means to be a real estate investor.
Fantastic. Bill, this is great stuff. I want to jump back to some questions that I have, if you're all right with that. But as I think about community building, real estate, and crowdfunding together, right? Uh, I think about trying, on the one hand, to sort of preserve culture, community history, community values, keeping people in their homes, in their communities, not dislodging them in a gentrifying redevelopment initiative, but instead creating shared economic prosperity that raises the community up. How do you accomplish that? It seems so delicate. The line you cross right between gentrification and community building is, boy, it seems like a hard line to seems difficult, seems challenging. How do you do it?
It is very difficult. A couple of examples. I was riding up the street with my son the other day, and the government did a project here in Louisville, and my son was commenting on how nice the properties looked, and I said, yeah, they look really nice today, but this is all public investment, and there will not be another investment for the next 50 or 60 years. So at the end of that 50 or 60 years, it's going to look like it did before this investment, right? So it's important that, that from that real estate crowdfunding perspective, that those investments are made over time, right? Intermittently, those investments are made. What do I mean by that? Is that you think about an area. So many years ago, here in West Louisville, the Walnut Street district, it's now called Muhammad Ali Boulevard, but the Walnut Street district was filled with stores. There are no stores on that particular street anymore. It's all housing. It's all apartments, and that's not really conducive to a neighborhood, to a community. It doesn't really have the it doesn't really have that culture. It doesn't really say this is the part of town where I am. As an example, just east of there, the Bardstown Road area it's filled with these small eclectic shops. People are out; they're constantly walking around, spending money. And if you don't continue to invest in a business, if a business fails by chance, and that business has to leave, a particular place in a corridor, commercial corridor, then someone needs to come in, reinvest in that, put another business in there, keep the property values up. And I think that, and this is, again, I like to call this community-led economic development. There is an opportunity for the communities, for the people in the communities who know the needs, who see the needs, who understand the needs, to come together, create an offer, and then the people in the community to invest in this offer, in this development. If people in the community, as an example, if people in the community need a dry cleaners, and they come in and they invest in the dry cleaners, everybody's going to get their clothes cleaned at that particular dry cleaners because there's a financial benefit tied to it. And you're going to tell everyone about that. Another example that I can give from here in Louisville is, there were no coffee shops, small privately owned coffee shops west of Ninth Street, and there's one now called Black Coffee, and it became so popular, and it was crowdfunded, and it became so popular that they're already right within like 18 months looking at a second location. So a lot of times, it's just having the courage to get out there, the courage and the information and the knowledge to really get out there and ask the crowd to invest alongside of you. A lot of times people don't think about it because they don't think that people in the community will invest. And I think, again, this goes back to an earlier question that this is the opportunity to, number one, educate yourself, but also this is an opportunity to build community, build the culture in the community, keep the culture in the community. And the other thing I wanted to say was a couple years ago, I was in Cincinnati, and that's the area where I grew up. And the hotel that we stayed at was literally, and I mean literally, built on the same places that I played as a kid at the Coreyville Community Center. It's gone, right? It is completely gone. The only thing I recognize from 40, 50 years ago are the names of the street. It has all been gentrified. So being able to keep that community and that community culture is something that can absolutely be done, through investment crowdfunding, at least at some level. And it provides the community with an opportunity to make decisions. It and to have an input in the decision making. And also it keeps that intermittent investment going, right? Not where there's an investment at one point and then there's not another investment for 50 years, but there's constant and consistent investment in the community that allows people to build both individual wealth and also community wealth.
And when you talk about that, uh, I want to be clear. I think you're really talking about the unique capability of crowdfunding. And so I want to follow up on that and ask about your experience with the kind of the effectiveness of crowdfunding. You've seen it work, you've seen what's going on, um, and participated in this a number of times. And so I'm curious about the actual effect you see on the development projects and the unique advantages that crowdfunding offers that uh, other equity investors, for instance, or even other lenders might not provide that crowdfunding does.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that crowdfunding, when you talk about other equity investors and especially lenders, banks, what crowdfunding does is it again takes the ladder all the way down to the last rung, and you are talking to the people in the community who live in this community, who not only are interested in investing in this, but they have an input. They know what really needs to go into the community, what it is that they want to see in the community, what they need in the community. Prior prior to investment crowdfunding, that just wasn't possible. This is a little bit off of real estate crowdfunding, but I just want to give like a personal example. Um, my son and I, we had a business called City Life Local Food, and our mission was to kind of get food into local food deserts in West Louisville, Kentucky. And we started to grow that business. We started to work with some of the larger corporations downtown, and we needed an infusion of capital in order to buy some trucks and to expand our refrigeration and freezer space. So we went to our bank, and of course, we just hadn't been in business long enough for the bank to give us a loan, and I surely understand that. So we ended up going to the city and asking the city, for a loan, and the city they were unwilling to give us a loan, but they told us they would write us into a grant. And for whatever reason, we weren't written into the grant, and then our business ended because we just couldn't grow because we didn't have that capital. Fast forward to 2019, and on the south side of Chicago, Roots and Vines, they were doing something very similar to what it was that we were doing. And this was one of the early campaigns that I worked on By the Block as a consultant. And Miss Ina Jones was able to go to her community, raise the capital that she needed to get a space, and to operate the business for a while. And, that business is still going. It's still a successful business today. And, the impact that that business had simply because investment crowdfunding existed. It didn't exist for us. And, so when we were unable to get outside capital, our business ended. With her, she was able to go directly to the beneficiaries of that business, raise the capital that she needed, and not only raise the capital that she needed, I guarantee you that those people were the main people purchasing food from her and those items. So really understanding, and for me, that's personal, but it's also a great demonstration of, I think, Devin, the question that you ask is how crowdfunding can be real, how it can be on the ground. The same thing, I spoke a little bit about the Fifth Ward project in Houston. And that project was able to keep the people who lived in the community with that intermittent investment, right? That brought the community up another level, right? People were able to get renovated living spaces. There were some new living spaces built. There was an opportunity to renovate and to build some places for businesses to go into. But the community and the culture of the community remained the same because people were willing to invest in the community. And prior to investment crowdfunding, those opportunities just did not exist.
Bill, I've got a a personal kind of follow up. I live in what is arguably statistically the most diverse city in the country. Uh, it's a white minority community, and we've got a large Hispanic community, mostly people of Mexican heritage. We've got large Asian populations, large Polynesian population. We have a large African American community. It is genuinely a very diverse community. That said, one of the things that I think we see is that people have sometimes exploited minority communities, especially, I'm talking about people who look like me, right? Come in with, sometimes we call them carpetbaggers, right? But they come in as interlopers and take advantage of communities rather than supporting them. But that experience, right, informs those diverse communities and makes them reticent to invest in deals that might be offered by someone who looks like me. How would you coach someone who happens to look like me to build a project that supports and involves this diverse community and collect investments from those people in a way that they would benefit from it when they might be skeptical because of where I'm coming from, right? Who I am. How would you coach me?
So the first thing I would say is is not a direct answer to your question. The first thing I would say is for the people in your community, the people that look like you, maybe investing in the other people's projects, right, would be a really great first step. Um, you know, being willing to invest in what it is that someone else is doing. And then a more direct answer to your question, I would say, really getting on the ground, talking to people, letting people know exactly what it is that you're going to do, and how you plan on doing that and spelling it out and, talking to them and educating them about real estate crowdfunding, about investment crowdfunding and how it works. I don't necessarily think that anything I am going to say here is going to really break down those barriers because it has happened for such a long time. That trust just isn't going to be there. And I think that the best solution for that question may be for that community, to invest in other projects, right? Projects that are led by, these diverse founders, right, and issuers. I think that, is what's really going to be able to build trust. Is the fact that, if you really want to help, if you really want to see this neighborhood change, then invest, right, in this diverse leadership, and don't always expect people from other communities to invest in those projects.
Yeah, yeah, that's great counsel. I appreciate that insight. As we get close to wrapping up, folks, if you've got one last question for Bill, be sure to submit that in the Q&A function. We'd love to get your final questions in before we conclude. But let me ask um, one other question of you, Bill. Let's talk a little bit about investor engagement. How do you engage and retain community investors in your crowdfunding project so that they stick around, so that they tell their friends? What's the process that you use for, building that community engagement?
So the first thing is to understand exactly who it is I'm talking to, and what motivates those people to invest. What motivates those people to be interested in a particular project. I laugh oftentimes. Everybody, I mean, I'm like this too, right? I think that whatever it is I'm doing is the greatest thing in the world. And people are looking at me, right, with their eyes glazed over, thinking, what does this have to do with me? And it's very important that when you talk to investors, when you talk about to potential investors, you really have to understand what motivates them. You have to center them. How is this going to benefit them? And I'm not only talking about the return on capital investment, but what I like to call the return on crowd. Um, how is that going to, how is this project going to benefit me? As the investor, the potential investor, groups of investors, I think it's very important. And if you don't learn to talk about your offering in that manner, it's very difficult, because people are, again, they're not going to listen, because, like, nobody wants to hear me talk about myself all the time, right? Especially if I'm asking them to do something with me, right? They want to know how this is going to help them, how this is going to help their community. And I think really getting to know people, engaging with people, on social media, kind of like what we did today, allowing people to participate, as opposed to us getting on here with a list of questions, and this being, just a dialogue between you and I. If you do virtual events, invite the audience in to these virtual events. Let them participate. Let them learn. Let them see this from their perspective. I think that is one of the most important aspects of, potential investor engagement. And the last thing I'll say about that investor engagement is, after people invest, don't let them go. Think about how hard you worked to get these people to part with their money to invest in your project, in you. Stay in communication with them, just like you did, when you were trying to get them to invest, because they are now part of your project. Keep them involved. And I think that is really important. And a lot of times, founders tend to forget that, right? It's like, now I have the money, now I'm off to do the work. But you have to keep investors engaged, throughout the entire process.
Oh, that's great. We do have one last question that's popped in. Let me take a look at this. So Ishmael El Amin asks a question. Bill, we are currently on our second crowdfund, and we have had success. We received institutional VC funding and want to use the news to motivate our everyday investors to grow their positions or spread word to others. We know there is an educational gap and don't want to overwhelm anyone. Any tips on sharing how important this is without going over the heads of the majority?
Yeah, absolutely. I almost feel like you kind of answered your own question there. You have to talk to your audience, right? You have to talk to your audience. I was in a policy meeting, which I'm normally not in policy meetings, and a lot of times I wasn't really sure what people were talking about. So you have to talk to your audience. It's really important that you bring them along slowly, ensure that they're understanding exactly what it is that you're saying. One of the things that I personally like to do is I like to give examples. I like to tell stories about what something looks like. I was laughing. I was working with a co-founder at Raiseway, and we were working on a spreadsheet, and we were literally going into the spreadsheet and deleting numbers. And I said, "This is what the lack of access to capital looks like. This is it. This is what it looks like. This is how it plays out in the real world." And people can understand that, right? Sometimes when you talk about the lack of access to capital, they may or may not fully understand that. But if you provide them with examples, if you show them, I think that people understand those things better. So talk about the importance of of the institutional capital that you receive, but also the part and the importance, right, that the community round is going to play in driving your business or real estate opportunity forward. So give people examples so they can see, feel, and touch and understand it better at that level instead of just information.
Fantastic, fantastic. Uh, Bill, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We're so grateful, and I want to thank everyone that attended here in the Zoom meeting, but also everyone who has watched on YouTube and across social media where we've shared this. We also want to thank those who watch the recording. This is such a treasure trove of information. We're grateful for all of those people who are watching. But again, Bill, we thank you for being here today. And before we wrap up, why don't you just share some final information about how people could follow up with you? Because people will want to learn more, want to connect. Let people know how they can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can my website is crowd-max.com. I have a lot of blogs and information there. Bill Huston YouTube channel. I have over 100 videos there that you can watch. You can definitely reach out to me at Bill Huston, Huston, at crowd-max.com. That's my email address. And I am on LinkedIn every day, all day long at Bill Huston 1.
Fantastic. Bill, thank you so much. You're great. We appreciate you sharing your expertise and thank you deeply for the time you've invested with us today. With that, we'll wrap it up, everybody, and we'll see you next month at next month's Super Crowd Hour webinar, where next month we'll have Angela Barbash with us, and we'll be talking about investing in communities. So another can't miss event. Thanks a bunch, everyone. Bye bye now.
Thank you.